All right, so this is going to be the video on Act 3 of Macbeth. Um, as, as usual, it will be reviewing the material that we covered in class, as well as touching on elements of this act that we perhaps did not get to during class or that I wanted to go into in greater depth. All right, you should be finishing Act 4 for our next class, and then obviously we'll finish the play the following week. And as I mentioned in class, as a reminder, we can come back to, we have time, right? So we can come back to previous acts, which we will be coming back to, and looking at, especially once we finish the entire play, to remind ourselves of events that transpired earlier that might have been more confusing, though will be less so now once we see what transpires. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to pull up the text. I'll keep this try to keep it to an hour or less, and do bring your questions to class so that we can continue the discussion. Okay, let's get it up here. All right, so Act 3, and again, I'm going to go through this relatively fast because we covered certainly the first part of this in detail. All right, but just as a reminder, we start Act 3 as we started Act 2 with Banquo. Remember, we were discussing the situation with Banquo in terms of both his particular relationship with Macbeth, right? When we saw them when Macbeth is first introduced to us, it's with Banquo. They have their initial encounter with the three witches, the weird sisters, together. And both are told of prophecies that relate to them. Most immediately, Macbeth become king, but of course Banquo, who is told that his descendants will be kings. And we've been looking and exploring the ideas. We see how Macbeth has responded, right? Yeah, he wavered. What should I do? Will this prophecy come to fruition if I do nothing? Or is it only going to happen if I act? Right, free will versus predestination. We've seen him go back and forth. We've seen that it's Lady Macbeth. When Macbeth wavers, it's Lady Macbeth who eggs him on. And he finally makes that decision to go through with it and kills Duncan. And we've been noticing a change in Macbeth. Right, we noticed it after the murder of Duncan, when he comes back to Lady Macbeth and he's a wreck, right? And she has to berate him and say, get it together, man. Okay, and he looks like he's about to lose his mind, right? But then when he comes out after Macduff discovers the king's body, we notice Macbeth is now playing his role, and that's another major theme here, right? The deception. Put on the mask. Don't let people read your face. They'll become suspicious. Lady Macbeth is telling Macbeth that regularly because Macbeth is showing his emotions, and she's concerned that he's going to give things away. Well, he doesn't in the scene when they discover Duncan's body. And we saw that change in him, or seemed to be a change. He becomes more assertive. He play acts very well. And he takes the initiative, very importantly. It's the first time we really see him take the initiative. He kills the bodyguards without any prompting that we are aware of from Lady Macbeth. Everything else has been pretty much Lady Macbeth's plan. Things have been done by her design. Well, we are now seeing Macbeth taking more control, which he does, and it's a from his perspective, it's a logical thing to do. It exposes a flaw in Lady Macbeth's plan, right? And we saw how Macduff responded to when it's revealed that Macbeth killed the bodyguards, and Macduff's going, "Why'd you do that? We need to interrogate them." Right? Yeah, looks like they did the killing, but they would have done the killing at someone else's behest, not on their own. And certainly they wouldn't have. They have no reason to, and they would have run away. Right? There's too many open ends here. We need to talk to them. And we're getting the sense that Macbeth realized that, and then on his own tied up those loose ends. And again, just as a quick reminder, and then we saw Malcolm and Donalbain, the sons of Duncan, saying, something's not right here. We could be in danger. We better get out of here. And they leave, and that casts suspicion upon them, which exposes another flaw in Lady Macbeth's plan, because it would have been Malcolm who would have become king after the death of Duncan. But because he flees, suspicion is cast upon him as having been the perpetrator of the murder, A, and B, he's not there to become king. And then it is left for Macbeth to be crowned king. So the prophecy has been realized. They've reached it. All right, everything that was supposed to transpire did, all the way to Macbeth becoming king. And now he is, in fact, king. But we're only in Act 3. All right? So we have to start seeing how this is going to play on both his and Lady Macbeth's minds. Okay, we're here. We've achieved what we set out for. Our ambition has been realized. Now what? All right, again, the short-sightedness of the plan. And of course, Banquo, as Macbeth is starting to realize, is, let's not forget that the witches also said that Banquo's descendants will become king. And we had that moment, which we'll look at briefly as we go through this, where Macbeth is going, so did I do all this just so Banquo's descendants can become king? And this gets into the idea of the heir. Who's going to be the heir to Macbeth? But we're wanting to pay close attention to Macbeth, certainly here in Act 3, in terms of how he is changing and how his mind starts digesting this new reality. Right? The sense is Macbeth has crossed a line. We saw him wavering. I shouldn't do this. Duncan's not a bad person, etc., etc. Crosses the line, kills Duncan. And even though the immediate aftermath of that killing, he is a wreck, in that interval, as we saw with the comic relief and other things transpiring, he comes back with greater intensity, if you will, and purpose. Act 3, Banquo comes in, and we have Banquo alone here, and as we looked at in class, he's still reflecting on what the weird women promised. And now he's also revealing for us his suspicions of Macbeth, right? Because he knows what the prophecy said, so he's saying, I fear thou playest most foully for it, for the becoming king. Yet it was said, it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speech is the shine Why, by the verities on thee made good, may they not be my oracles as well, and set me up in hope? So remember, this is mirroring the same types of musings that Banquo was doing in Act Two. It suggests that even though we get the sense that Banquo is a more dutiful and restrained individual, and is, more honorable, because we've seen Macbeth has, gone over that line, regicide. But we're still seeing how he is reflecting and tempted in some way by this. Question is, would he act on it? All right. I mean, he's reflecting, because if these prophecies are going to come true, then this means the prophecies to me are going to come true as well. But the big difference between him and Macbeth is this idea of having to do something in order to assure that the prophecy comes true. Macbeth does something with the prodding of Lady Macbeth, but Banquo doesn't. But we are sensing that he might be considering it. All right, we'll get this last part, and set me up in hope, but hush, no more. Is that hush, no more a continuation? Well, no, I can't think about these things. It's wrong. It's not honorable. Or is it, but hush, no more, because people are coming? And people are coming, right? But notice he says, but hush, no more, before we hear the Senate sounding. Just, again, something in there that has us reflecting. Because we have to be thinking about this with Banquo. What's going to happen with Banquo now? And Macbeth, who's now king, here's our chief guest. Remember, they're going to be having a big banquet. I'll request your presence tonight at the supper. When we get to, let your highness command upon me, to which my duties, right, are most indissoluble tie forever knit. So again, we're seeing with Banquo this sense of duty, right? And his duty before was, his duty always is, first and foremost, to the king. Remember, as we discussed, the king is viewed as a anointed by God, right? In that, in the higher order of things, in that cosmological view. And Macbeth is now the king. So again, it's Banquo is somewhat put into the position of Macbeth before, because now, well, is he thinking, if Macbeth were to be taken out, then my children, is that possible? Even if it were to be, the coming back up here to the hush no more seems to be more of an eternal struggle within himself. No, I can't think of these things, and I must maintain my duties and my honor. We get this, are you writing this afternoon? He's trying to get a sense of what Banquo was going to be doing. We should have else desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and prosperous in this day's council, but we'll take tomorrow. And then are you writing far? Right, so he's prodding. We're going to find out why, right? He'll be gone all day, but he'll be back for, fail not our feast. My lord, I will not. And then Macbeth gets into business mode, if you will. We hear our bloody cousins are bestowed in England and in Ireland. Of course, that's Malcolm and Donalbain. And they're not confessing their cruel parricide. They're not confessing that they actually killed their father. Of course, Macbeth wants everyone to think that. And filling their hearers with strange invention, lying. This is what Macbeth is saying, lying to their hearers, the people that will listen to them in England and in Ireland. But of that tomorrow. All right, well, but we'll talk more about it tomorrow. So go have your nice ride, and then that last little bit, goes Fleance with you? Is your son going with you? I, my good Lord, our time does call upon us, right? And we know that Banquo we saw up here, right? Thou playest most foully for it. We know he is starting to suspect that Macbeth may have had something to do with Duncan's death. So how he responds now, because if Macbeth is capable of killing the king, then what more is Macbeth capable of doing? And Macbeth heard the prophecy that the witches said to Duncan. So when Macbeth says, goes Fleance with you, we could, anticipate Banquo going, yeah. And certainly, is he getting suspicious that maybe Macbeth is going to come after him and his descendants, since they're prophesied to be kings? Banquo leaves, and then we have this next soliloquy before Macbeth is going to talk with the murderers, because as we know, he is in fact hiring murderers to kill Banquo and Fleance, right? We get here, our fears and Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature, remember, always being attentive to references to nature, we've talked a lot about that, reigns that which would be feared, 'tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear. There's no one I fear more than Banquo. And under him my genius is rebuked. All right. It goes back and reflects on what it says. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me and bade them speak to him. Then prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown. Again, we're seeing this evolution or this change in Macbeth's personality. Upon my head, they placed a fruitless crown, a crown that does not have heirs, does not have any fruit, and put a barren scepter in my grip, thence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I filed my mind? For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered, put rancors in the vessel of my peace only for them, for Banquo and his children? No. Right? To make them kings, the seed of Banquo kings, rather than so come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? Right. So he's revealing that, yeah, he's the only person I fear. And then he's also angry. It's not just fear. It's anger mixed with rationalization. Did I do all this just for them? They're not, that's not right. That's not fair. Okay. The ability for the human capacity to rationalize. And we have the exchange with the murderers who he's hired to kill Banquo and Fleance. If you recall, with this in this scene, again, noticing the change in Macbeth. Remember how Lady Macbeth would often, in order to persuade Macbeth to continue with the deed, would play on his manhood, on the idea of what it is to be a man, right? This old school macho vision of a man. In that famous speech, if she had made a promise to as important as Macbeth, she would be willing to kill her own child. And of course, when she prays to God to unsex her, to make her a man. And she plays that on Macbeth regularly to ensure that he'll do the act. And we see here Macbeth doing the same thing with the murderers. Are you guys men? Banquo has been down on you, and et cetera, et cetera. Are you guys going to do the right thing as men? Right? We see it here. Your nature that you can let this go. I mean, nature being by nature, you're men, right? Are you going to let this go? That what Banquo has done to you? And note the first word: we are men, my liege. Okay. And so of men now, if you have a station in the file, not in the worst rank of manhood, say it, and I will put that business in your bosoms, whose executions take your enemy off, grabbles you to the heart and love of us. Right. So, on the surface, we're getting, Macbeth is hiring these murderers to go kill Banquo and his son. But we're also seeing a continuation of this theme of what is the perception of what it is to be a man. All right. And you want to keep that in mind as you continue reading. All the way back with Lady Macbeth, remember, again, with her, that prayer to unsex herself. Both of you know Banquo was your enemy. True, my lord. So is he mine, and in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrusts against my nearest of life, and though I could with barefaced power sweep him from my sight, right? I'm king now. I have the power to get rid of Banquo and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not. For certain friends that are both his and mine, whose loves I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down. Right? So he's saying, I can't be seen to have had anything to do with this. Right? He's protecting himself, deniability. And again, as we see things evolve, when people start becoming more suspicious of Macbeth, right, it's tied in to the disappearance of Banquo as well. Right, people are, especially Macduff. I remember Macduff wouldn't go to the coronation. So we're getting this. We're going to see at the end, by the end of this act, that now people are starting to question Macbeth, and big part of that will be from the banquet scene, which we're going to look at in a minute. Now you're going to notice something that's a little odd, and it's a bit of a conundrum for Shakespearean scholars have been debating. When we get to the actual murder of Banquo, you're going to notice that there's a third murderer there, but we never really know who that is, and it's hinted at here. Your spirits shine through you within this hour. At most, I will advise you where to plant yourselves to ambush Banquo. Acquaint you with the perfect spy of the time, the moment on it. Okay. This seems, it's hard to decipher what this could mean at this point, but what is noticeable is in the murder scene, there is a third murderer there. And is this the reference to him, a perfect spy? It's someone else that Macbeth has working with him. All right. So, something to be attentive to recognize, and to see if some more is revealed about that, because it is odd. Okay, so the murders end, and we have Macbeth finally saying, "It is concluded, Banquo, that thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight." We're back at the palace. We have Lady Macbeth here. Is Banquo gone from the court? To the servant, "Aye, madame, but returns again tonight. Say to the king I would tend his leisure for a few minutes." "Madame, I will." And the servant exits. And we have Lady Macbeth here briefly alone. And it's an important little bit here. "Naught's had, all spent, where our desire is got without content." Very important little phrase here. "'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy." What's she saying here? Right? And it's a bit of foreshadowing as to where she's going to be heading, because as we're watching Macbeth change, we're going to see if Lady Macbeth changes, right? Our desire is got. What is the desire? for Macbeth to become king. Right? That was the ambition. That was what this was all about. Where our desire is got, but without content. Right? She's mulling over the fact that, okay, we got here. This is what we were striving for, but I'm not happy. That could be a problem. Right? And again, speaks to the short-sightedness of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, in any case. Right? She wasn't thinking beyond the immediacy of Macbeth becoming king. Then what? We'll see how that plays out. And then Macbeth comes in, how now, my lord, why do you keep alone? Remember, Macbeth says he wanted to be alone before the banquet. Now, remember, this is just a little hint that seems to come out of the blue a little bit, and we're not able to fully, at this point, understand where she may be going with this. But again, how a play or a story or anything is laid out for structurally. When we see things that grab our attention, we need to take note of them to see how they're going to play out. So that down the road we go, oh, that's what that reference was to. That's what he or she was thinking, and now we're seeing it come to fruition. Okay, and it's an important part of the process of reading. Now, even if you don't, what's this? What's she talking about? Take note of it. Because then as you continue reading, the idea is, I want an answer to this. And in this case, we're going to find it. Not really until Act 4, though. How now, my lord, why do you keep alone? Of sorriest fancies your companions making, using those thoughts which should indeed have died with them, they think on. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done. Now, again, we want to play that off of here. What's done is done, right? She say, why are you being alone? You have to, it's a continuation that you got to play your part. You're alone, it could cast suspicion on you. Are you still, remember last time we saw just the two of them together was when Macbeth was freaking out, and she was basically, just go wash your hands and get over it, man. And she's reiterating that now. What's done is done. If she's interpreting his being alone as a continuation of his unwell state, sense of guilt, or something along those lines. What's done is done. Macbeth's response is intriguing. We have scotched the stake, not killed it. And so she's saying what's done is done. Right? What's done is done, and we're here. Now you're king. And of course, the implications, what's done is done, is we can't go back and undo them. But when you put these three things together, what we're seeing, we come back to here, what the desire is got without content. And what Macbeth is saying, we're not done. Right? So it's a bit of a play on this. What's done is done. Yes, it's done. You can't go back and undo it. Macbeth comes back and says, yeah, but we're not done. I'm not acting the way I am, regretting what we've done, wanting to go back and undo it. I'm saying we've got more to do. We're not done. Eerie and amir in fear and sleep in the affliction of these terrible dreams that shake us nightly. Better be with the dead whom we to gain our peace have sent to peace, than on the torture of the mind to lie in restless ecstasy. Okay, so what he's saying here is we can't sit back and enjoy this. That's what she's saying, right? I don't think she fully realized to what extent. We can't have peace because we have unfinished work. Duncan is in his grave. After life's fitful fever, he sleeps well. Treason has done his worst. nor steal, nor poison, malice, domestic, foreign levies, nothing can touch him any further. He's at peace. He's done. But we are still having these terrible dreams. We need to, if we want peace other than the peace of death, we have to finish the business at hand. Right? Now, Lady Macbeth, responds, gentle, my lord, sleek over your rugged looks, be bright and jovial among your guests tonight. She's like, okay, she doesn't prod him exactly, what do you mean there, Macbeth? But you're looking a little agitated here, and we have guests. Again, get it together, man. And Macbeth, so shall I, love, and so I pray be you. Right? A little bit of a twist, a little turning around here. Yeah, don't worry about me. I'll play my part. You just be sure you play yours. Let your remembrance apply to Banquo. Present him eminence, both with eye and tongue. Unsafe the while that we must lave our honors in these flattering streams and make our faces visitors to our hearts, disguising what they are. It's now Macbeth. It's always Lady Macbeth saying to Macbeth, put on the proper face. But now it's Macbeth who's telling Lady Macbeth, be sure you do. Lady Macbeth now is, you must leave this, because she's sensing his agitation. Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo and his fiancé lives. So now he's telling her, reminding her, she should know this. Okay? And again, attentive to the language. Scorpions in my mind. Thou knowest that Banquo and fiancé live, but in them nature's copy not return. There's comfort yet. They are assailable. Then be thou jocund, ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ear to black Hecate's summons, right? Remember, we're going to see Hecate shortly, right? The queen of the witches, if you will. The shard-boned beetle with his drowsy hums, nature imagery, hath rung night's yawning peal. There shall be done a deed of dreadful note. So he's now talking about, I have scorpions in my mind, right? Which is quite an image, right? And immediately from that, he talks about Banquo and fiancé. And that, of course, harps back to his previous soliloquy. Did I do all this for them? And this is the only man I fear. This is the scorpion in his mind. And he tells her, okay, there shall be done a deed of dreadful note. What's to be done? Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Macbeth is planning the murder of Banquo. He's not even telling Lady Macbeth. This is a reversal. Lady Macbeth was the one who was doing all the planning and plotting and everything else. Now it's Macbeth. And Macbeth goes so far as to not even share his plan with Lady Macbeth. What are we to make of that? Gotta be thinking about that now, because it really becomes so evident here. Okay, so they're getting ready for the banquet. We have the actual murder. Again, I just drew this to your attention because some of you would have picked up on it, and we can discuss it in class in more detail, some of the musings, scholarly musings as to why suddenly there's a third murderer. And the first one said, but who did bid thee join with us? And the third murderer says Macbeth. So Macbeth told me to be here. And we saw Macbeth say earlier, hinting at this. And excitement, he needs not mistrust since he delivers and so on. It's a bit of a conundrum. Again, we can come back to it in class, but we do want to keep it in our minds as we continue reading. Hark, I hear horses. Banquo, hey, give us light there. They hear the horses, they don't see them. But then Banquo and Fleance make their appearance. And the fight ensues. And Banquo is killed. But Fleance escapes. And now the murderers have to go and let Macbeth know that they only partially completed the task. Okay, now we get the now we are going to come to the banquet scene. Okay, so we will probably talk more about this scene a little bit in class because we didn't spend much time on it. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, point out a few things, but I would like to discuss it, as I said, when we're in class before we get into Act 4, because as we'll see, there's a lot here that relates to these changes I've been referring to that are occurring in Macbeth, and where this is going to, how this is going to impact not just what we see in Macbeth's changes, but it's also important what transpires in this scene is going to feed into what we see at the end of the act, which is people starting to get somewhat suspicious of Macbeth. Okay. So, banquet is prepared, everyone shows up. And we go through these formalities, right? You know your own degree, sit down at first and last, the hearty welcome. There's lords are here. Thanks to your majesty, remember he's king. Ourself will mingle with society and play the humble host. He's very much in mode. I mean, remember, he is actually king now. But there's a lack of legitimacy, at least he knows. There's a lack of legitimacy to his position. Our hostess keeps her state, but in best time we will require her welcome. Pronounce it for me, sir, to all our friends, for my heart speaks they are welcome. This is all very formal stuff now. And everyone is here to do honor to the new king. Murderer appears. And of course, we're having to, as I've mentioned many times, because it's a play, we're trying to get a sense from the dialogue, the exchanges, and these stage notes, how they reveal what we're supposed to conjure up as a result of this in our minds as to what is transpiring on stage. So the first murderer appears at the door. We see that, and presumably, right, Macbeth sees him as well. And Macbeth needs to find out how to go. Right? See, they encounter thee with their hearts' thanks, both sides are even. Here I'll sit in the midst and be large in mirth. Anon we'll drink a measure, the table round. But you get the sense like he's got an eye on he saw the murderer. So I'm going to continue with these formalities, play my part, wear my mask. But I got to go talk to the murderer. So he approaches the door. There's blood on my face. 'Tis Banquo's then. 'Tis better thee without than be within. Is he dispatched? My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him. Thou art the best of the cutthroats. Yet he's good that did the likes for Fleance. If thou didst, thou art the non-parallel. And this is where the first murderer now has to reveal the bad news. Most royal sir, Fleance escaped. Now watch here. Hearing the bad news, then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect, whole as the marble, founded as the rock, as broad and general as the casing air. But now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound in two saucy doubts and fears. So then comes my fit again. So we're seeing him doing all these formalities. He's king. He was even with Lady Macbeth. You'll see something's going to happen. Be attentive. What's it going to be? You'll see when it's done. He's taking this position of authority and confidence. But the news that Fleance escaped, then comes my fit again. And doubts and fears are back. Right? That's, you remember, the doubts and fears that he was expressing directly after he committed the murder. Right? And all around that time, and keep in mind as well, remember when he had the floating dagger scene, where he was hallucinating. Okay, and keep in mind the floating dagger, was there a dagger there, or was it just in his mind? Right? Because we can easily say, well, it was just in his mind, but remember all these supernatural qualities that are ingrained in this play, not the least of which is the three sisters, and all this disruption to nature. But Banquo's safe, right? All of these doubts and too saucy doubts and fears, and then. But Banquo's safe, right? You killed Banquo, right? Aye, my good lord, safe in a ditch he bides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least a death to nature. Thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies, the worm that's fled hath nature, that in time will venom breed, no teeth for the present. Get thee gone. Tomorrow we'll hear ourselves again. And the murderer leaves. And now Macbeth is in this, everyone's here. It's a big banquet. And he just got this news that had a tremendous impact on him. And Lady Macbeth comes up and she's, always eyeballing him. Okay, my royal lord, you do not give the cheer. The feast is sold that is not often vouched, while 'tis a making, 'tis given with welcome. To feed were best at home, from thence the sauce to meat is ceremony. Meeting were bare without it. She's saying, your demeanor, your attitude has changed, right? You do not give the cheer. Where's that smile? Right? This is a happy occasion. Sweet remembrancer, now good digestion wait on appetite and health on both. And the Lennox comes in, may please your highness to sit. Now you have to be attentive in this scene to try to get a sense of how it's unfolding on the stage. That's why I said we'll probably come back to it, and I would like to show a clip where we can see a possible way of doing this. Because may it please your highness to sit, and then the ghost of Banquo enters and sits in Macbeth's place. Now our stage direction says a ghost of Banquo enters. It doesn't say Macbeth sees a ghost. It says a ghost actually enters. We'll have to look at this a little more closely tomorrow in class because I want to get your reactions to it. And it sits in Macbeth's place. Here had we now our country's honored roof, were the graced person of our Banquo present, whom may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance? His absence, sir, lays blame upon his promise, please your highness, to grace us with your royal company. The table's full. So Macbeth sees the ghost. Macbeth sees the ghost sitting in his chair. When Lennox is saying, come, and Ross is saying, come, sit down, join us. It's a banquet. Macbeth's like, the table's full. There's no place for me to sit. Lennox says, here's a place reserved, sir. Where? Here, my good lord. What is it that moves your highness? What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What is everything okay, sire? Macbeth is seeing a ghost. He's just been told that Banquo's dead. And now he's seen Banquo sitting in his chair. Remember the dagger, just like with the dagger. No one else can see Banquo. So again, is this now the scorpions in his mind is starting to, ratchet up a few notches here? Now, Macbeth, which of you have done this? What, my good lord? Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me. Remember how he was made it, the reason he hired the murderers, as he explained to them, is I need deniability. Eventually they're going to know that Bank was dead, right? But they can't blame me because I didn't do it. These murderers did it, not me. The suggestion here is they all can see what I can see. They all see Banquo's ghost. Thou canst not say I did it. You can't say that I created this ghost. Ross says, gentlemen, rise. His Highness is not well. All right, so again, you have to imagine how Macbeth is freaking out now because everyone is noticing something's wrong with Macbeth. Now Lady Macbeth comes in to try and save the day. Sit, worthy friends. My lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth. Everyone relax. Macbeth has had these types of fits. It always has, since he was young. Pray you, keep seat. The fit is momentary. Upon a thought he will again be well. If much you note him, you shall offend him, and extend his passion. Feed and regard him not. Okay, so she's trying to calm everyone down here. No, he has a little, these types of fits where he's acting this weird way. But just everyone sit down, it'll pass, and don't notice it. Don't harp on it. You'll make it worse. And then, right, back to this one again. Are you a man? All right, now it's not clearly indicated to us, but we can determine that this is directed at Macbeth. She's playing on this. What are you doing, man? Pull it together. Aren't you a man? Aye, and a bold one that dare look on that which might appall the devil. Oh, proper stuff, this is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger. Don't you see what's happening? It's like when you were hallucinating with the dagger, which you said led you to Duncan, right? So clearly he had related the story of the dagger to her. Oh, these flaws and starts and postures to true fear would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire. A woman behaves like this. Right? This is a woman's story. Are you not a man that you're letting these things get to you? A woman's story at a winter's fire authorized by her grandam. Shame itself. Why do you make such faces when all's done? You look but on a stool. Why are you making such faces? You have to imagine that Macbeth is like, it's a ghost, it's Banquo's ghost sitting right there. And she's like, why are you making these faces? Everything's done. You're just looking at a chair. You're just looking at the stool. Right? Because she knows that this is not going to go down well with all these lords here at the banquet. And he's going, prithee, see there, behold, look. Lo, how say you? Why, what care I, if thou canst not speak too? If charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back, our monuments shall be the maws of kites. He's genuinely believing he is seeing a ghost. And the ghost of Banquet vanishes. And again, what quite unmanned in folly. Right? But now the ghost is gone. And again, our sense is from these directions that there was actually a ghost there. But we have to be asking ourselves, is there an actual ghost there, or is these the scorpions in Macbeth's mind that's making him see a ghost when there is in fact no ghost? And now he's going to defend it. If I stand here, I saw him. Fie, for shame, Lady Macbeth is saying. Blood hath been shed ere now in the olden time, ere human statute purged the gentle wheel. Aye, and since two murders have been performed, too terrible for the ear. Right? He's starting to again feel the weight of his actions. These terrible, immoral, unethical, even more than that, right? These unnatural actions. This is more strange than such a murder is. And Lady Macbeth, my worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you. They're waiting for you. I do forget. Do not muse at me, my most worthy friends. Now because the ghost is gone now. At least he can't see the ghost. I do forget. And he says to everyone, do not muse at me, my most worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity, which is nothing to those that know me. Come, love and health to all. Then I'll sit down. Give me some wine. Fill full. I drink to the general joy of the world, the whole table, and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here, to all in him we thirst, and all to all. So now he's recovered himself. The ghost is gone. Macbeth is seemingly saying, oh God, okay, that was just a really bad moment, but there's no ghost. I'm fine. He even goes so far as to get totally back into his role, making these references. Where is Banquo, by the way? He's supposed to be here. He said he'd be here. Where is that guy? And everyone, our duties and the play, everything gets back to normal, and then boom, ghost is back. And Macbeth responds to me, avaunt and quit my sight, let the earth hide thee. Thy bones are marrowless, thy blood is cold, thou hast no speculation in those eyes which thou dost glare with. He's losing it quickly. And Lady Macbeth, again, throughout this whole scene, trying to save the situation. Think of this, good peers, but as a thing of custom, 'tis no other, only it spoils the pleasure of the time. Again, she's going back to, he has these fits. And don't worry about it. We've been dealing with this for a long time. It's nothing for you to be concerned about, but it is kind of ruining the evening. What man dare I dare? Approach thou like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros. Note all the nature imagery coming up here. Or the Hircan tiger. Take any shape but that, and my firm nerves shall never tremble. Whatever you are, just don't appear to me as Banquo's ghost. Or be alive again and dare me to the desert with my sword. If trembling I inhabit them, protest me, the baby of a girl. Hence, horrible shadow, unreal mockery. Hence, get out of here. And acknowledging that he's, he can't control himself. He's that overwhelmed and terrified by this vision or by the ghost itself. And then the ghost vanishes again. Why, so being gone, I am a man again. Again, the play on the manhood, right? From the baby of a girl, now I'm man again. You leave, and now I'm man again. Pray you, sit still. And Lady Macbeth said, you have much displaced the mirth, broke the good meeting with most admired disorder. You kind of ruined everything there, Macbeth. Because everyone's looking at him whoa. What's going on with Macbeth here, man? This looks like more than just some fits he occasionally has, right? Can such things be and overcome us like a summer's cloud without our special wonder? You make me strange even to the disposition that I owe. when now I think you can behold such sights and keep the natural ruby of your cheeks when mine is blanched with fear. So he's trying to pull himself back again. I am a man again. But this has utterly impacted him in an overwhelming way. And Ross is going, what sights, my Lord? What are you talking about, right? When now I think you can behold such sights and keep the natural ruby of your cheek. How can you be so calm? Keep the natural color in your face when you've just seen what I've seen. I'm white with fear because I'm seeing Banquo's ghost. How come you're fine? And so that's suggesting strongly that he doesn't realize he's the only one who sees the ghost. What sights, my Lord? Right? That's the reveal for us. And now Lady Macbeth jumps in. I pray you speak not. He grows worse and worse. Question enrages him. Right? So Macbeth is not recovering after this second appearance of the ghost. Lady Macbeth recognizes this. People are starting to get suspicious. She's saying he grows worse and worse. And don't question him. We'll make it worse. At once, good night. Stand not upon the order of your going, but go at once. Everyone get out. Sorry, but he is not well. You all have to leave. Good night, and better health attend his majesty. A kind good night to all. Everyone leaves with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Macbeth, I will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Remember, I told you to be attentive to the symbolic nature of blood, right? It's physically blood on the hands, but there's that symbolic. What does blood represent? Guilt, among other things. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Augurs and understood relations have by maggot pies and coughs and rooks brought forth the secretest man of blood. What is the night? Right, so he's in bad shape here. Lady Macbeth is still there to protect him, protect them together. What is the night? Almost at odds with morning, which is which. Okay, how sayest thou that Macduff denies his person at our great bidding? So he's snapping back a little bit here. Right, so here he is. He's devastated by seeing this ghost. He's really discombobulated, if you will. But then he has the wherewithal. And this is, again, remember, we were seeing his change. He's becoming more assertive. He's the one who decides to kill Banquo without Lady Macbeth. He's the one who's recognizing we're not done. We're not done. You may think we're done. Remember, and Lady Macbeth is saying, we're done, but I'm not happy. And Macbeth is saying, we're not done. Okay? And of course, the play on, what's done in the past. But he's still now, what's up with Macduff? Why didn't he show up? Like that harps back to the end of Act 2, when Macduff doesn't even come to the coronation. Did you send to him, sir? I hear it, by the way, but I will send. There's not a one of them, but in his house I keep a servant feed. I will tomorrow, betimes I will, to the weird sisters more shall they speak. So this is alerting us that he's now suspicious, remember, as he was suspicious of Banquo. Now Banquo's been eliminated. Remember, that was his greatest fear. Now he's turning his attention to Macduff, right? It's almost a demonstration of a certain level of paranoia, which would be understandable, so maybe not paranoia, but legitimate fear. Because he knows he got here by deception and murder and mayhem. And now he's looking around, looking over his shoulder, because since I did it that way, others may want to do it that way and get rid of me. That's the curse, right, of achieving an ambitious goal in an unsavory way, because then you psychologically are concerned that someone's going to do the same thing to you, since you are capable of doing it. then others must be capable of doing it. And now he's turning his attention to Macduff, and he is saying, I will go see the Weird Sisters again. I need to see them. I need to know more. For now I am bent to know by the worst means, the worst. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. I am in blood steeped in so far that should I wait no more, returning were as tedious as to go over. He is acknowledging, I am so deep in blood, I've crossed the line. There's no going back. They can only go forward. I know I need to go see the Weird Sisters. I need to go see the witches. I need to find out as much information as I can. And now I realize that I have to protect what I have fought for and achieved here, right? And there's ghosts involved in all kinds of things. And remember, there's the scorpions in his mind. Strange things I have in head, that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned. You lack the season of all natures, sleep, right? You need to sleep. You're overtired, Macbeth. Your mind is you're going to lose your mind if you don't get sleep, right? The importance of sleep. We need sleep. Our natures need sleep. But of course, remember going back after he killed Duncan, when he said, I have murdered sleep. Macbeth has murdered sleep. Without sleep, the mind is going to get more and more out of control. Come, will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate that fear that wants hard use. We are yet but young indeed. We are yet but young indeed. We're not done. The deed is not done. It's young. Okay, then quickly here, we're back up on the heath with the three witches and Hecate. Now this, again, something we'll have to touch on because there's a very important scene with the witches in Act 4. But what we have here is Hecate is berating them. Remember, she is the, if you will, the queen of witches. She's the boss. Have I not reason, Beldams, as you are saucy and overbold? She's chastising them. How did you dare to trade and traffic with Macbeth in riddles and affairs of death? And I, the mistress of your charms, the close contriver of all harms, was never called to bear my part or show the glory of our art. Right? So the suggestion there is that the three witches, didn't consult their boss when they decided to do whatever it is they're doing to Macbeth. And they're getting berated here. And, which is worse, all you have done hath been put but for a wayward son, spiteful and wrathful, who, as others do, loves for his own ends, not for you. But make amends now. Get you gone, and at the pit of Acheron, meet me in the morning. Thither he will come to know his destiny. He being Macbeth, right? Your vessels and your spells provide, your charms and everything beside. I am for the air this night I'll spend unto a dismal and fatal end. Great business must be wrought ere noon. Upon the corner of the moon there hangs a vaporous drop profound. I'll catch it ere it come to ground, and that'll distill by magic sleights, shall raise such artificial sprites as by the strength of their illusion shall draw him on to his, here, important. It's giving us a little heads up as to what's going to happen at the next meeting. We shall draw him on to his confusion. I'm going to get prepared for what is going to happen when he comes to see us in Act 4. He shall spurn fate, scorn death, and bear he hopes of wisdom, grace, and fear. And you all know security is mortal's chiefest enemy. All right, so what do they have in store? What's the plan? And Hecate, leaves and the witches are still there. Come, let's make haste. She'll soon be back again, and they leave. So come, let's make, she'll soon be back again. So we see how they're deferring to Hecate. It's an interesting little scene. It can be a bit confusing. Why wasn't Hecate there? We see her berating, why did you three witches do this without me? We can talk more about it in class. Often this brief scene is omitted from productions because it's hard to reconcile with certain other, like, is it necessary that Hecate be the one in charge? Seems like the three witches were doing fine on their own. We'll have to look at that. Okay, we're almost done here. And this is important, what transpires here at the end with Lennox and this other lord. What we're going to see unfold here is the beginnings of people becoming suspicious of Macbeth. Remember, they've witnessed Macbeth's meltdown at the banquet. And now Banquo is dead. My former speeches have but hit your thoughts, which can interpret further. Only, I say, things have been strangely born. The gracious Duncan was pitied of Macbeth. Marry, he was dead. And the right valiant Banquo walked too late. Whom, you may say, if it please you, Fleance killed, for Fleance fled. Right? So, Duncan was killed by his sons and they ran away. And now we have Banquo killed by his son and his son ran away. Men must not walk too late. Who cannot want the thought how monstrous it was for Malcolm and for Donalbain to kill their gracious father? Damned fact. How it did grieve Macbeth. Did he not straight in pious rage the two delinquents there that were the slaves of drink and thralls of sleep, right? He's recounting what happened here. It's almost as if we have Lennox here. Well, wait a minute. Let me go over this again, right? And he's talking about when Macbeth went and killed the two bodyguards. Was not that nobly done? Aye, and wisely too. For 'twould have angered any heart alive to hear the men deny it. So that I say he has borne all things well. And I do think that had he Duncan's son under his key, as and please heaven he shall not, they should find that 'twere to kill a father, so should Fleance. If Macbeth had them, what would he do? But peace, for from broad words and cause he failed his presence at the tyrant's feast. I hear Macduff lives in disgrace. Sir, can you tell me where he bestows himself? And the other lord says, the son of Duncan, from whom this tyrant holds the due of birth, lives in the English court and is received of the most pious Edward. So here's the shift. Like, where's Malcolm? And the son of Duncan, from whom this tyrant holds the due of birth. So while this might be a little unclear, what is Lennox's position when he's musing upon these things that have happened, here we're getting a sense clearly of what these two are talking about. From whom this tyrant, the tyrant is Macbeth, because he holds the due, the rightful birth that should be Malcolm, who is king. So now at least these two, are looking at Macbeth as a tyrant. They're starting to put things together. And where is Malcolm? He lives in the English court and is received of the most pious Edward, King of England, with such grace that the malevolence of fortune nothing takes from his high respect. Thither, Macduff is gone to pray the holy king upon his aid. Macduff has gone to England, not to see necessarily Malcolm, but to go see King Edward, to pray the holy king upon his aid, asking the king for help to wake Northumberland and warlike seaward, that by the help of these, so Macduff is going to ask the king to give him Northumberland and warlike seaward, for them to help him, Macduff, with him above, God, to ratify the work, we may again give to our tables meat, sleep to our nights, free from our feasts and banquets, bloody knives, do faithful homage and receive free honors, all which we pine for now. And this report hath so exasperated the king that he prepares for some attempt of war. Okay, so yeah, and we can look at this again, but what it is telling us is that Macduff, the Lord is telling us, has gone to ask for the king for aid to take out Macbeth, that things are not good, okay? Free from our feasts and banquets and bloody knives, because the feasts and banquets didn't go well. Do faithful homage, receive free honors, all which we pine for now, because we don't have them now. Okay. Sent he to Macduff? He did, and with an absolute "Sir, not I," the cloudy messenger turns me his back and hums, as who should say, "You'll rue the time that clogs me with this answer." And that well might advise him to a caution, to hold what distance his wisdom can provide. Some holy angel fly to the court of England and unfold his message. Here he comes, that a swift blessing may soon return to this our suffering country. Our suffering country under a hand accursed. Do everything you can to get a message to the king that they should receive Macduff well. The plotting now begins. Okay. Note how these acts end with these brief scenes that are quite revealing. We saw at the end of Act 2 that it was Macduff is not going to the coronation. We don't. It's not until we get to the end of Act 3 that we now know that Macduff is working his way towards England to get the help of the King of England to raise an army to defeat Macbeth. Because the country is suffering under an accursed hand. The accursed hand, of course, is Macbeth. So, I mean, again, we have to recognize that other things have been going on, which are revealed in the scene. It's not just that Macbeth is, hallucinating or seeing ghosts at the banquet, but as is revealed here, there are other issues that have led themselves or built together an argument and an understanding, in a sense, that Macbeth is not doing a very good job. He's tyrannical, which he has to be to protect himself, and of course the suspicions now on, did Macbeth actually kill Duncan? It's just revealed in, of course, a sequence that follows the banquet, and to allow for us to get a much better picture of the idea that things are really not going well for Macbeth at this point. And people are starting to get suspicious. Okay. All right, so that covers Act 3. We will discuss Act 4 tomorrow. We'll revisit parts of Act 3. Act 3 very much acts as a pivotal moment, because now the suspicion is revealed, and now we're going to see, it's clearly been indicated to us that now there's going to be conflict, that people are being suspicious of Macbeth with combination of the way he's hallucinating and how did he become king, and the idea that, wait a minute, we had the king and then the blame is put on his sons, and then Banquo and the blame is put on his son. Something doesn't smell right here. And we're also getting the sense that the way that Macbeth is governing at this point is tyrannical. All these reasons are now starting a movement among the lords that we need to get Scotland back, because Scotland is now being controlled by an accursed hand, the accursed hand of Macbeth. Okay, Act 4 for our next class, and we'll take it from there.